This video is specifically for our wonderful LEAP participants. If you are watching this, you'll recognize my voice and know who you are. Thank you so much for attending. We discussed the game of NIM, and as a group came up with a strategy for it that was pretty close to being one that was not only mathematically correct, but easy to remember and implement, so you didn't have to be scribbling on a piece of paper while you play the game with an opponent. We didn't prove the correctness of the strategy because it was beyond the scope of the course and the time we had, but I put some references on the slides and I'll add them to the description of this video if I remember, for those who stumble across this video and weren't there. So the game of NIM, as a reminder, starts with piles of whatever objects you happen to have handy. It can be paper clips, a handful of pens, buttons, whatever you have that you can divide into piles, discrete objects. We used poker chips because I happened to have 500 of them lying around, and the fact that they came in different colors turned out to be really helpful for what we were doing. The game has two players taking turns removing one or more items from a pile. And the goal in this version is to be the last player to move. So you want to take the last chip or chips from the table, and you can do that if they are in one pile. So anyway, there's lots of places where you can play online and see the rules and see the strategies for that matter. But I wanted to write down, but it was hard to write down, so I'm going to write down and tell you in person here in this video, not in person, the strategy we used. So we figured out fairly early that if it was your turn to move and you were looking at two equal piles of poker chips, ignore the black ones here, just imagine the green and the red. There's 5 in each pile. Sorry for the terrible graphics, but low budget video here. You're in trouble because whatever you take, your opponent will just mimic what you do. And so you might take 2 from this pile, and your opponent will take 2 from this pile. You might take 1 from this pile, your opponent will take 1. So no matter what you do, they are mimicking, and you're always in that position of having 2 equal piles after your opponent moves because they mimic your move. So this is not great for you. We actually started with very small games of 1 pile, 1 chip, things like that. It's a good strategy to analyze a game to work up from smaller problems. And in the end, what we came up with was the idea of there being hidden equal piles. So now let's look at 3 piles. I have some number of black, green, and red chips stacked up. So when you're playing this, you would probably put them as a stack, or depending on who you're playing with and what you're doing, you might do something different. But anyway, the strategy we came up with is to take your pile and either in your head or on the table, if you want to, we spread them out. So here you would take the pile of red chips and divide it into a pile of 4 and a pile of 1. Here with the green, we have a pile of 4, a pile of 1, and a pile of 2. And I'm going to put the 1 red kind of laterally at the same level as the 1 green so we can see this more easily. And then the black, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got 8 plus a group of 2. And I'm doing powers of 2 on purpose because what we figured out was that if you can match up these powers of 2, so here the 2 black are matching with the 2 green, so this makes a hidden equal pile. The 1 green and the 1 red make a hidden equal pile, and the 4 red and the 4 green make a hidden equal pile. And you want to leave your opponent with a number of equal piles. Your job right now then would be to take the 8 black that are not in a hidden pile. So let me do that sort of. So let's take these black over, erase my lines. I shouldn't have drawn because now it's difficult. So whatever your opponent does, if they take 1 of the black from the pile of 2, you take 1 of the green from the pile of 2. If they take the 1 red, you take the 1 green that goes with it. If they take any number of these reds, you take any number of the greens that go with it. Those are easy situations. The more difficult situation comes from when they don't respect your piles, because why would they? They either don't know they're there, or if they do, they would mess with them, I assume, because that is a way to win if these piles are important to you. So they could take, for instance, one of the reds from here and one of the reds from here, because they can take any number from the red pile. Whenever you get a situation like this where it's not so easy to see what your corresponding move is, here it's not so bad because you could take from the green pile and you'll end up in the same situation. But whenever you need to, just put the piles back and reform your powers of 2 again. So the 2 red and 2 green, a green and a red match up, the 4 green and the 2 black. Here's where it gets a little bit wrinkly, but it always works. We'll match up the red and green and the red and green, and now take the 4 green and split them into a 2 that's going to match with the black and a 2 that you're going to take, and that's going to equalize the game again into hidden piles. So the beauty of powers of 2, and again we didn't prove this, is that well, I think it's fairly easy to see that you can always decompose the piles into powers of 2. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do we know that the opponent can't mess up the piles? And also, we didn't really get into this, but it's an interesting question. Why can your opponent not leave you with hidden piles? So I guess I'll have to leave you with that as a kind of a thought experiment. And if you're curious to follow up with some research or some reading, or probably some good YouTube videos I haven't seen yet about strategies for the game of Nim, but I think it suffices for me to say right now that if you follow this strategy, it has been mathematically proven that you will be able to get to a position of hidden piles, and your opponent will have to disrupt that and cannot leave you with a position of hidden piles with this strategy. So you will always win, and the benefit is your opponent can't necessarily, if they haven't watched this video, so they won't know about your hidden piles, and so they won't know what you're doing, and even if they know, there's nothing they can do about it. There's no element of chance in these games. So anyway, that was a bit confused. That was my first attempt on making a game theory video. Please forgive the awkwardness, but it's a lot of fun, and I hope you agree, and hope we can talk about it soon. Bye for now.